Tracey from Nova Scotia Living, and here in front of me and in front of you I have 50 pounds of cabbage. I'm going to make some sauerkraut, and it takes a couple of months to make, and it's a labor of love, but it's so worth it and it's so good for you. So first things first, I'm going to take the outside leaves of this and shred it up. You can either use a sharp knife, a mandolin, or a food processor if you have a grater attachment. And that's what I'm going to do until my food processor gives out. But for now, let's start taking the leaves off. Oh, you guys are up a little close. Let's see. Alright, well, that'll do. Anyways, what I'm going to do first is just take the outside leaves off. These cabbages were grown here in the valley of Nova Scotia. Oh, there's a bug on that one. Heaven's sakes, I don't want to hurt you, buggy. Let me put them outside. I don't like to hurt anything if I don't have to. I should get a little dish because these are, you know, homegrown. Take the first couple layers off, and this cabbage will need to be washed just because it's straight out of the garden. But there, that one's just a little dirty. I should have had my stuff together. So I'm just going to cut the end off. Oh, Lord. I'm going to cut it up in small enough pieces that I can shred it. There's no really specific way to do it. Just do what you feel is comfortable for your hand, because if you're grating or cutting anything, you need to be sure yourself, because you certainly don't want to cut your fingers off or slice them open or anything. I'm going to wash these, like I said, and then we'll come back and start shredding. This will take a little while because I have so much to do. I actually have some bread dough in the oven rising. So I'm going to try to get as much of this done as I can before I have to finish that project. My table's clean, guys. Alright, that's one cabbage, so when I get done most of this, I'll bring you back. Alright, I just shredded up one cabbage. I might need more than that big bucket. I have a couple of crocks. The first time I did sauerkraut, I have some actually old-fashioned crocks down in the basement. If I don't have enough room in that bucket, but I just wanted to say I'm using the recipe out of this book, and it's really, really simple. It just takes a little elbow grease and yeah, patience. So what I do, Maze, my youngest over there, he's bumbling around. He needs his apron on too. But this is one cabbage. I shredded it up with my food processor, lickety split. I'll show you when I get near the end. But lickety split, and it saves so much time and energy. And I put 3 tablespoons of pickling salt. You can use pickling salt, or you could use kosher salt if you don't have pickling salt. Just don't use iodized salt, like table salt. And you sprinkle it in, mix it up. I'm going to get my hands in there. You want to see? Wow. I'm going to get my hands in there after, not now. But this cabbage is going to wilt some from that salt. And we don't really add any liquid to this today, unless we really have to. We'll make a brine to put on it because we need to make sure it's covered with liquid. But the juices that are released from the cabbage, from that salt, over time, you got to get, it's not instant. It's going to cover the cabbage, and that's what we're going to ferment the cabbage in. So that's only one cabbage. I got a few more to do. So I'll bring you back when I'm near the end, and I'll show you exactly how I shred it up.
Can I put it in there?
No, you don't put that in there, bub. That's the core. No. All right, I'm down to the last cabbage. So I'm going to show you what I do. Oh, I got to get you situated here. I think you can see there. I got my bread bacon. Oh. I got my apron on. I'm sitting down. I find it's easier when you're standing up, but my bones are really hurting today, so thank goodness for my food processor is all I have to say about that. I take off the first couple of leaves. You've seen me do that just because you don't want any cabbage that has any blemishes on it, so it seems very wasteful, but I compost all of this. It's not, I'm feeding it back to the earth. So this one has, yeah, has a little more. And for every 5 pounds of shredded cabbage that you have, you use, according to this recipe, you use 3 tablespoons. What is that? 3 tablespoons of pickling salt. So that's what I've been doing. And I thought I could fit it all in that bucket, but I can't right now. So I broke out this. But eventually I can probably all get it into that bucket. Boy, I have to take off a bunch of layers for this one. I'm just going to try to cut that part off this. The rest of the leaf is good, it's just this one part. So, let's speed it up for a second. Alright guys, I forgot to turn the camera back on. I started shredding it. Oh, let me lift my screen up so I can make sure that you guys can see what I'm doing. I just briefly, like if there's, you just try to get all the dirt off of this. You got to make sure all your utensils, all your buckets, and all of the things that you're using are clean. Because we're going to be fermenting this and we don't need any extra germs in there. But, and when you ferment something, you can do it in a crock. You can do it in a food grade bucket. You can do it in a glass container. But you cannot do it in a metal pot. You just can't do it. The salt and the reaction with the metal, aluminum or whatever, you can't do it. So this comes in so handy. I've done it before with the mandolin and it takes forever. Works good, but takes forever. This, 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. Now I have to empty it a lot, but it works good. Look at that! Look at that! Perfect. Little, it just looks like coleslaw. I put salt in this. I forget if I put salt in there.
It's good.
No, I didn't. I have to put salt in this. I do it layer by layer. And I'm just putting 3 tablespoons of pickling salt. Let me just bring it in a little closer. And you can use your hands, which I'm going to do after I'm all done all this. But I'm using just like a wooden utensil and pushing it down and squishing it down. And it's going to take a while for this cabbage to wilt some, but the juices will come out. I just keep doing this every, for this amount of cabbage, I'm going to give it a couple of hours. And I'm going to keep doing this every, 15 minutes. moving it around. I'll get my hands in there and squish it with, I have food gloves. Maze, don't break that, honey. So, we'll put this in. I still have half a cabbage left to do. And I'll add another 3 tablespoons of salt on top of that. And this is only my second time ever fermenting cabbage. And it turned out great. I canned up some of it. You lose some of the probiotic nutrients if you do that, but it lasts longer. Just because I don't have the, I just didn't want to be committed to make sure that I'm watching stuff that's continue to ferment over months and months and months, because it takes a lot of patience and determination and commitment to do this, but it's worth it, and it's so good for you. And I use it in a few dishes, or you can just eat it straight up sauerkraut. So, all right, I just took that bread out of the oven. So I just want to show you. This has to really be worked with. And this is the hardest, physical hardest part of making sauerkraut, is this part, the initial part. And I just keep moving it around. It's hard because it's a big 5-gallon bucket or 4-gallon, I forget now. I had 50 pounds of cabbage, so this is going to make oodles. But I can already see, it's hard for you to see, but it's starting to release some of its juices. And eventually, it'll come up. It's not going to be like an overflowing thing at all. You'll have to push it down, and we're going to weight this cabbage down with the plate. So it makes sure it's to make sure that all the cabbage stays submerged in its juices. So I'll bring you back when it's starting to make a little more progress. Alright friends, well, I haven't been able to get the juices to come up above the cabbage, but I'm not worried about it. I'm about to make some brine, and the recipe's in that book, but, you know, follow a book that you have. But this recipe is 4.5 teaspoons of pickling salt, or canning salt, per 4 cups of water. So you bring the water up, so, like, I don't know if you need to boil it, but just so the salt dissolves, and then you let it cool. And then you can add it to your sauerkraut. So this is just the water. I made a big batch, and what I do, you can, I mean, I've done it and it's worked, but do what you want to do. I've canned the leftover brine, so it'll be ready to go the next time when if I ever need it, like, because sometimes you need to add brine to sauerkraut throughout the fermentation process. So I did 32 cups of water, and I have the equivalent of the salt to add to it. So I'll bring you back when we start adding some brine to our buckets. Alright guys, well, that brine has cooled down. It's about room temperature now. I can't really get it any colder than that. But once I get it in the cabbage and put that in a cool spot, it should be good. So let me find a big measuring cup. Because we're not trying to drain, you know, have a big cap of water over top of it. We just want it to be covered. And then we need to make sure it stays submersed. Let me come over on this side. So I plan on fermenting this for a couple of months. I'm going to give it a minute to let all the nooks and crannies be filled in. That one needs a little bit more. Might need a little bit more, I think. So you can well imagine this is salty brine, but that's what it's supposed to be. So I have a lid for this, the smaller bucket. I don't have one for this bigger bucket right now. I'm gonna get one, but I don't have one right now. But when I put the lid on this, it's not gonna be tight. It's just gonna be enough to cover it, so it can kind of breathe a little bit. I don't want it like airtight. But let me see if I can find a good plate to weigh that down. That would work. Now, what I did last time, that seems to be staying there. I'll check this in the morning for sure. And I can bring you guys back to check it. Let's see here. See where the liquid is coming up? We need to make sure it stays above the cabbage. If you find the plate keeps coming up, it's okay to weigh this down. What I did, I used a mason jar filled with some either water or leftover brine. It's a good way to keep your brine if you have leftover, and sit it on top of this plate, and that'll keep it down too. So let's go over here and check this. Check out this bucket. So it seems like there's plenty of liquid, but it can be deceiving because it can look like this one day and it be all the way sucked down the next. So that's why you gotta, this is where the commitment comes in. You have to keep an eye on this. You can't leave it for a week. You gotta check it at least every other day, at least. It doesn't hurt to check it every day if you can. So I'm gonna get a big plate for that. If it'll take a big plate. Yeah, it should. And we're gonna come back tomorrow morning. Oh yeah, my hands are clean too, guys. So that's right over top. Beautiful. And if I find that the water, you know, if the plate isn't holding it down good enough, that's when I'm gonna put a weight on it. Hey friends, so it's been 2 days later since we did that sauerkraut. Shredded it up and put it in those big buckets. And I set it outside in the porch there behind me because it's nice and cool out there. So here's a picture of what it looks like the next morning after we shredded it. And now, I checked it already, but I just thought I came in to get my camera. So we'll go out and see what it looks like now. What's wrong, bub? We'll go put it on your plate. Oh, the garbage is right there, bub. So let me just, we're going out to the porch here. My porch isn't completely straightened up, so please ignore the mess. I just put it out here. And this is extra brine. But here's the little bucket. And it's hard to see, but the liquid is still coming up around the edges of the plate. And it's fine. If you want to see, my hands are clean. Oh, I can't get it up. I have to get a plate, but anyways, I'm just going to leave that. And I'm going to check this. Well, I'll probably end up checking it every day, but just as soon as you start seeing a little film develop, and here's where the big plate is, and there's still liquid coming all up there. That's good. As soon as you start seeing any film, I, you know, skim it off. I don't want that film on my sauerkraut. If you forget to do it, it's going to start to mold, and it could contaminate your whole, you know, batch of sauerkraut. You certainly don't want to do that after all that work. Just washing my hand here. Yeah, so anyways, I think this is going to be a 2-month project, guys. So I'll do like maybe a weekly or bi-weekly check-in, you know, just a minute video to go show you what the sauerkraut looks like. But that brine that I told you to make, or, you know, that we have to make, because some of that water in the sauerkraut's going to evaporate. But the important thing is not to let the sauerkraut dry out. So throughout the fermentation process, we'll have to make some more brine and just top it up a little bit. You don't need to drown it, but you need to have it covered. So if that, you know, needs to take place, I'll bring you along for the journey, because we're in this together, guys. It's a commitment. So anyways, I don't know how well this video will turn out, but it's my first time trying to film sauerkraut. But I can guarantee it's going to be tasty, as long as we keep on top of it. So peace, love, and happiness. And please like, share, and subscribe if you so choose. And come back tomorrow. We'll see what kind of trouble we can stir up. But yeah. Alright guys, I'm tired. I got a roast beef in the oven now. I need to peel some spuds for supper because my kids will be home from school soon. So, catch you later.